This is Library Nerds with Words, the podcast that gives you the word on all the cool, nerdy happenings at Peter White Public Library and the library universe beyond. From books and concerts to search engines and story times, the library nerds are in and ready to show you that being a nerd can be cool. Get ready, get set, get nerdy. Welcome back to Library Nerds with Words, the podcast where you get all the word on all the cool things happening at Peter White Public Library and the library universe beyond, straight from the people who know it best, library nerds. I'm Marty Achatz, the Adult Programming Coordinator at Peter White Public Library. And joining me in the Fortress of Nerddom is poet, musician, artist, editor, publisher, Ronnie Ferguson from Harvard Square Press. Welcome to the podcast, Ronnie.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You know, Ronnie and I have been friends for many years now. We've done concerts and films and books together. And you were instrumental in the success of the last NEA Big Read at PWPL, filming a documentary and all the programs we did around Joy Harjo's book, An American Sunrise. And without you, there literally would be no Great Lakes Poetry Festival because you were the one who came to me with the idea of creating that. And you just published your first collection of poems. And with your band Streaking in Tongues, you've released many critically acclaimed albums. You might say that there is no contest about it. Ronnie is a true Renaissance man. And yes, that is a very veiled clue as to what Ronnie and I are going to be talking about a little while later in the podcast. I could go on for 3 days talking about Ronnie's accomplishments, another clue. However, first we have to play a little game called Word on the Nerd. I'm going to ask you 3 library nerd questions about yourself, and you have to answer them for listeners. So, Ronnie, are you ready to play?
Word on the Nerd.
Okay, Ronnie, this is going to be a little game of Would You Rather.
All right.
I'm going to ask you 3 Would You Rather questions, and you have to truthfully answer them for the listeners. And all of today's questions have something to do with poetry in some way.
Okay.
All right, so, Ronnie, this is your first question. Would you rather have to write a sestina, or would you rather have to write a sonnet?
You said truthfully. I got to answer
Truthfully, yes.
Truthfully, I would probably neither.
You can't do that.
Okay,
you have to
okay.
pick one or the other.
I got one I'll pick, but
Okay.
I would say not neither because usually form comes later, for me. But if I had to pick, I would say a sonnet just because I have... I'm working with economy, and I like that it's short, and also recently being exposed to Frank sonnets by Diane Seuss kind of re-energizes the form a little bit, and so I'd be excited about trying to do something in that form. Yeah,
I would choose a sonnet as well. It seems like a more adaptable form than the sestina is. That repetition of words and everything just... we were just talking before we started recording. I said I've only done one successful sestina in my life, and it took me many months to get it successful.
And we don't do too good with rules. So.
No, Ronnie and I do. We are rule breakers as opposed to rule followers. So if someone says, "Hey, I have a great idea," we'll look at it and try to think of different ways to approach it. So I'm with you on this one. A total sonnet. And like you said, Diane Seuss sort of reinvigorated that whole form with that book. Still hugely popular. I mean, Diane Seuss is amazing. So.
And I know she was really popular beforehand, but I wouldn't have known about her if she wouldn't have been a part of our festival.
Right. So, yeah. I mean, she's just. We were supremely lucky. I think I sent that email to her either right before or right after she won the Pulitzer for Frank Sonnets. And that email got buried, I think, for a while because she didn't respond for like 3 weeks. So anyway, okay. So sonnet it is. Now, Ronnie, the questions might get a little harder from here on out.
Okay.
All right. So here's your second question. Would you rather attend a poetry workshop taught by Robert Frost, or would you rather attend a poetry workshop taught by Emily Dickinson?
Short answer, Emily Dickinson.
Okay.
And the reason is because I really appreciate both their craft, but Emily Dickinson, I just have more questions. There's more, I will say, mystery to what she's doing, and I think I would be excited to figure out, or I guess get close to how her mind works and how she thinks about creativity.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably. I mean, I love Frost, but Emily Dickinson, there's something I don't understand the way her mind works and where she comes up with some of the images and ideas that she works with, and plus she also breaks rules quite a bit with her poetry. I mean, what she was right. There's a reason why she only published like 5 or 6 poems during her lifetime. I mean, I think that the world wasn't quite ready for what she was offering. And I think that it took a little bit of time for people to recognize the genius of what she was doing.
And with her, I would also say just a master of economy, and also what I love about her poetry too. By the way, both of them were 2 of the first poets I ever read as a kid. You know, she's also a master of what's not said in the poem. She has a world that's on the page, but then there's worlds between the lines, and I love that about her.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of, when I wrote that question, I thought, I know which one Ronnie's going to go with, but let's see. I might get surprised here.
Okay.
But, yeah, Emily Dickinson. It would be Emily Dickinson for me all the way, too. I love her. I love Robert Frost, but Frost usually wrote sonnets. I mean, he wrote in very strict form. Not that Emily Dickinson doesn't have her own form, but it's a different kind of thing. So, all right. Here is your last question. I think this is the hardest one. We'll see.
Okay.
Would you rather write 20 collections of poetry and have moderate success? Or would you rather write 1 collection of poetry, win the Pulitzer Prize, and never publish anything ever again?
That's an interesting question. That's actually the easiest question for me.
Okay.
And this is why. Well, but it requires a question. So this book that you're writing for, this one book, are you writing for the same amount of time? Are you taking 20 years to write this book? Because if so, I don't know. I guess this is what it would be for me. The Pulitzer Prize or any prize doesn't matter. I think like the reason I love to write is because I love to write, and I enjoy the process, and it's just so central to, my own livelihood and my own well-being that whichever one of those is going to allow me the most, the longest life of writing, then that's the one I would pick. And so I think the way the questions said, I would say probably the 20 books, the 20 books, just because I imagine that would take longer than the 1 book.
Yeah.
But I guess the twist on that is maybe it would take somebody, maybe that 1 book would be really epic. So, but I would say whichever one gives me the most time to write.
I struggled with this one. I mean, I can't imagine a day going by without me sitting down and writing something. But I guess the way the question is, again, I wrote the question, so I should have thought of this. But the way the question is phrased, just because you only publish 1 book of poems and win the Pulitzer Prize for it, that doesn't mean that you stop writing.
That's true.
It means you can still continue writing. And perhaps, here's my thing, perhaps if you win the Pulitzer Prize, you establish your reputation enough, you're going to be able to support yourself to give yourself more time to just focus on your writing.
That's a good way of looking at it, yeah.
So
I would say, so the question is basically, would you rather be a famous writer or an obscure writer? And I would say I'd rather be somewhere in the middle.
Right, yeah.
I would rather have people reading my stuff because, that's why I'm writing, to connect with people. One of the reasons, I guess. And the other thing is, it seems like whenever you hear about famous people talking about being famous, it's not that fun.
No.
It seems like most of them hate it.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. And I will say this, that if you win the Pulitzer Prize, if you go and give readings, your asking price definitely rises.
Yeah.
So the potential of more earnings so that you can support your life and your writing and stuff like that goes up as well. It depends. If I have to stop writing after publishing that one book, I would say no, I'll go with a 20. Mm-hmm. But if I only publish one book, I win a Pulitzer Prize, and therefore the money keeps coming in and I can do whatever I want and write wherever I want, then I would go with the one book. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know, I'd hole up like J.D. Salinger in Vermont and have a vault and put all the stuff in there. So,
It'll come out one day, yeah. I mean, the majority of poets do not make anywhere even approaching a living doing poetry. And so winning something like the Pulitzer Prize or becoming the U.S. Poet Laureate or something seems like it'd be almost like a lottery ticket in poetry. So, yeah, that is a really tough question. I take that back. That is a hard question.
All right. Well, there you go. We have come to the end of this poetic edition of Word on the Nerd, this time with poet, musician, artist, editor Ronnie Ferguson from Harvard Square Press. Now the time has come to find out what is on Ronnie's mind today. It's a little segment on the podcast we call The Word. All right, Ronnie, what is on your mind today? Well, it's on our minds today.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be over Labor Day weekend. Mm-hmm. We have our third, which will be our third now, international 3-day poetry chapbook contest. Yeah. And so I'm super excited about that. Our judge this year is Diane Glancy.
Yeah.
And so far, based on our first 2 years, the contest just keeps growing. We're getting literally books from all over the world that people are writing over 3 days. And I just can't wait to see what happens with this one. And our theme this year, I believe, is Room for Love.
Room for Love. Again, I love the theme. We have another cohort that we work with on coming up with stuff like this and writing the prompts for the contest as well. And she's the one that came up with Room for Love. Beth Roberts, great poet. If you haven't checked out her books, you should check out her books. She's fantastic. But, she has this mind. She came. I mean, we were talking about doing something to do with love and stuff like that, and nothing was really hitting the right chord with Ronnie or myself. And then suddenly Beth just sent us an email and said, how about Room for Love? And I was like...
Well, she was right, because some people think about writing about love, you think in familiar ways or maybe cliche ways, and we needed our theme to have a little more room, and so she came up with the perfect solution. Room for Love.
It's just amazing. And the thing that I have really loved with these last two ones that we've done is seeing how people interpret that theme in different ways. I mean, and they literally have interpreted those themes and the past two themes really differently, significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. You could literally say to the moon in the back, because the winner of our first contest, Our Natural Satellite by Russell Brakefield, was all about the moon.
Yep.
And our last contest, which was the theme on the last one?
The last one was the human animal.
The human animal, and so we got some amazing interpretations of that, and the winner ended up being Lamprey by Erica Kielsgaard, which is all focused on the lamprey. And so
it's just astounding. And I mean, and we're going to talk a little bit, maybe give you some, if you're listening to this and are looking for some help as to how to approach it, if you're thinking about doing it, we're going to talk about that a little bit. But let's give the details of how people can sign up for this.
Yeah.
So again, Ronnie said it starts, it's on Labor Day weekend, but you do have to pre-register for this.
Yes.
Go to pwpl.info, fill out a registration form, and there are 100 spots available. Actually, there are no longer 100 spots available because we already have 54 people registered for this. So there are 46 spots available still. So you go and fill that out. If you don't register, you cannot enter the contest. It's free, so it doesn't cost you any money. So the actual writing starts. You have to have registered before the contest by Friday, August 23rd, by 6 p.m. So don't put that off though, because the way that it's going, I'm thinking that in a couple weeks we might be full up for registrations. But okay, so register by Friday, August 23rd or sooner, and then the writing starts Friday, August 30th. At 6 p.m. And we will post about 50 writing prompts, 25, maybe 30 to 50 writing prompts in case you get stuck and need help. We do provide those prompts. But the writing time is from Friday, August 30th, 6 p.m. to Monday, September 4th at 6 p.m. So you're going to spend your whole weekend on Labor Day writing poetry. Or if you're really fast, you might spend one day and then spend the rest of the time, polishing. But you have that time. And then you have one day, we give you one day to polish the manuscript, put it in a form that you want it in, and then you have to submit the manuscript by Tuesday, September 5th by 6 p.m. And this is all the details, all these details are on the website. If you go to it, look for 3-day International Chapbook Contest. It's all there. You can look that up. And I'm really excited about our judge this year, Diane Glancy, who was our headline poet for this last Great Lakes Poetry Festival. Just a lovely, lovely person.
Yes.
And just internationally, just a really internationally renowned writer, poet. I mean, she doesn't just do poetry. She does novels, plays. I mean, she's a Renaissance person, sort of like Ronnie is. So she does all kinds of stuff, and she's very excited to be able to do this. And the way that the judging happens is that we have 3 judges who do the preliminary judging. They narrow it down to about I think 7 or 8 manuscripts. Those manuscripts get sent on to Diane Glancy, and she is the one that will choose first, second, third, and honorable mention in that. Now, for the prizes, I've got to get this straight in my head. So for the prizes, it's first prize $500 plus 50 copies, perfect bound copies of your chapbook.
That's right.
And Ronnie from Harvard Square Press. Harvard Square Press is the one that puts these manuscripts together, and Ronnie is the one that works with the winning poets to bring their vision for their book into reality. So yeah, first prize, 50 copies of the book, $500. Second prize is 25 copies of the book, and I believe $30.
It was a gift card, I think.
Well, I think it's going to be cash this time.
Cash this time, okay.
Yeah, so $30, second prize, plus 25 copies of your book, and then third prize is $25 plus 25 copies of your book. And you also, I mean, that doesn't mean that we're only going to print up 50 copies of the book and 25 copies of the book. This is going to be available for any poet that wins. These books will be available forever, basically. So you can order more copies if you need them to go to readings and stuff like that. It's just a really wonderful opportunity for poets. Whether you're a first-time poet or a seasoned poet, I mean, if Diane Seuss wants to enter this chapbook contest, it's all blind, so we don't know who's entering the contest.
Can't have your name on any of the manuscripts. Right. And it's great. I will mention with Diane Glancy being our judge. So I remember when Diane Glancy was here at Peter White Library, and one thing she said really stuck with me, and it was great to hear it from her, having written in so many genres she has. And she said poetry's a Pokemon. And what she meant by that is poetry, can eat up the different genres around it, and somehow poetry is strong enough it can sustain the influence from the other genres and still be itself, And I think that maybe that's a good clue for anyone, going to participate in this contest. Is you can try, you can take risk. That's one of the things we want people to do at this contest, is just to try to do something you've never done before. Really. And to do it in 3 days, and so that is part of, I guess, the charm of the contest, the challenge of the contest, and that's really what Harvard Square Press is about too. Is we're really we're most excited about helping people publish new things that are written recently that kind of encourage the momentum of the poet, and that's what this whole contest is about, is just giving people a real challenge that's going to possibly shake them out of their comfort zone and give them a little focus on. We give them just a theme, but within that theme, there's a million different ways they can take.
Right, exactly, and everybody's on the honor system here. There's no way we're going to be able to tell whether these are old poems that you're recycling or anything like that. Not that I'm suggesting that. But everybody's on the honor system. And, I will say this, that you can almost tell when you look at the entries, if a poem is if the manuscript is new and fresh, you can almost always tell it.
Yeah.
Even not that it's going to be poorly written, but there's an energy to it that really speaks.
Yeah, and it's not about being anal retentive or anything when you're turning your manuscript. You turn in the most clean thing, but all of the judges understand this was written in 3 days. There's going to be typos. There's going to be this. That's stuff that we'll clean up before publication, but the main thing is just you're getting the writing done. You're really going for it. You're really trying your best. And I would say also, what would we say the length? 15 to...
I think we said something, I think it says 15 pages to about 45 pages of poems.
That's right. And I would say with a lot of our, lot of people that have finished the contest, whether they won or not, they found it a good challenge for themselves. But you can do some thinking before the contest. It's not like you got to just show up at your desk that day and go, okay, what am I going to do? You can come up with some notes, come with some brainstorm, some concepts, some different ways you might want to explore this. Some people have even done research. I'm going to look into, for example, with the human animal. I know that some of our writers researched animals, researched different things that they may or may not use when they sit down to actually start drafting some poems. And so there's a lot of different ways you can approach the contest.
Yeah. And like you said, Russell Brakefield, all of the research, he did a lot of research for that book on the moon. Erica, I think, did lots of research prior to starting to write about the lamprey, too. You can prepare for it. You just all of the writing has to be within that specific time frame. And I will throw this out there, too, that there are some times where the judges look at a book, and even if it might not make the final cut and end up being like an honorable mention or something beyond that, if something blows our socks off, there's still a possibility that we might say, you didn't win the contest, but we really love this manuscript. And there's a possibility that you would still get published.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're working on, and that's the vision of Harvard Square Press, is to continue publishing. So Harvard Square Press has only been around for, since about 2016, I think we started. We're up to 17 books now. And the big thing that we try to do is make the publishing experience like very artist friendly, sustainable, grassroots kind of style. And so, we're looking for anything that we think that just happens to be interesting to us.
Exactly. Yeah, and it, like I said, I wouldn't say that you have to write in form or you have to write this way or free verse, or we don't approach it that way. If you write something that is absolutely amazing and knock our socks off, it's going to get we're going to seriously consider it.
We love to be surprised.
We love to be surprised, and we love to be surprised with this contest too. I never would have thought that the winning book last year for The Human Animal was going to be a book about sea lamprey, which I find a little disgusting. And and the book Lamprey sort of reimagines what a lamprey is and what a lamprey represents.
Yeah, that's exactly. Having talked with Erica, I know that she was trying to, what's a good word, sort of de-villainize the lamprey or kind of put the lamprey in a different light. Originally, when we were talking about the cover, for example, I brought up the idea, well, maybe we should have like an open mouth lamprey with all the teeth, and she said, you know what, I want a different image of a lamprey on the cover. I want to have people look at the lamprey in a different way. So if you look at the cover of that book, it's a smiling, friendly lamprey on the front.
Actually, it's a realistic looking lamprey, but it does look like it's smiling. I looked at that cover when I first saw it, and I was like, well, that is not a lamprey that I've ever imagined in my life. So, and I love the fact that she had a really clear concept of what she wanted to do with that book.
Yeah, and we get long manuscripts. Lamprey was one of the shorter ones, but where Russell, who won the first year, his was like almost the maximum length, where Eric was almost a minimum. So there's no preference. People don't have to feel like they got to write the full 40 or 45 pages, whatever we list as the max. I mean, basically, you just have to get over 15 or more pages, and that's it.
And if you want to write 15 haiku, and those haiku are absolutely stunningly amazing and surprising, you could win. Yeah. You could absolutely win. I find haiku one of the hardest forms to work in because you really do have to concentrate on image, and that image has to do so much work for you. So, people think, oh, I could write up 15 haiku in 3 days' time. It's not. I don't think it's that easy. But, I guess the gist of this conversation is we just want to be surprised. We want something that we haven't seen before. Or we want something that's going to help us reimagine something that we have seen before and make us see it in a new light.
And love is the theme, room for love. So what could people write about? Just doing a 5-second brainstorm here. They could write about romantic love. They could write about love between brothers and sisters. They could write about love for nature. They could write about room for love, in our world, in the animal kingdom.
Or places. I mean, room for love. What's your room for love?
Yeah.
Where are you going to find that?
Or maybe a literal room.
Exactly. Maybe all the poems are set in one specific room, and everything is all about what's in that room. I mean, there's so many ways that you can approach this. It's pretty amazing. Now, I'm going to go over the details one more time before we move on to our next segment. Okay, so you have to register for this. There are now 46 registration spots open. 54 of them have already been claimed. So you need to go to pwpl.info, find the 3-day chapbook contest link, fill out the form, get yourself registered. No cost. Okay? And you have to do that by the 23rd of August, Friday by 6 p.m. The contest starts Friday, August 30th at 6 p.m., runs through Monday, September 4th at 6 p.m., and in that 3-day time, you create your work, and then you have 1 day to polish that work and submit it by Tuesday, September 5th by 6 p.m. The judging process takes a few months, and then we hope to announce who the winners and runners-up, first, second, third, and honorable mentions are by sometime in early January at the latest. That's what we usually shoot for.
Yep, and we have a couple uniform rules, a certain size, text and different font choices that we choose. But one of the main things we have is it's a blind contest, so you can't have your name anywhere on the manuscript. So we don't know who the winners are until they're announced at the very end by Diane Glancy this year.
Right. And Ronnie, I think, is the only one that knows. He's not one of the judges. He's not one of the preliminary judges, but he knows who all the poets are and what manuscripts attached to them. But when the preliminary judges get that pile of manuscripts, and last year it was a pretty hefty pile, they have no idea who they're reading. So.
Yeah, I will say this, though, based on last year and based on what we already have registered, hopefully this is a fun challenge. You're going to be competing with people from all over the world. We've had poets submit and register from, we believe, every continent besides Antarctica at this point.
Pretty much. So, I mean, we've had Australian. We currently, the ones I was looking at the registrations, where they were coming from. India, we've had quite a few people from India who vote,
Great.
And South Africa as well.
Great.
So, I mean, it really is an international contest. So you are competing on a really high level, and don't let that intimidate you, though. Don't let that intimidate you, because I think that a first-time poet could easily write a book of poems that's amazing, submit it, and win this contest. I truly believe that. In fact, I sometimes hope that happens. It's like, I've never done poetry before, but look,
And I will say this, too. Winning the contest isn't really the point. It's a nice excuse for us to be able to serve 3 poets and help them get their work out there, the 3 winners. But having competed in the International 3-Day Novel Contest in John Billman's class, I found just the experience of competing was really eye-opening for me. It really helped me as a writer, and I lost the contest incredibly. But I would say with this contest, just the act of just doing it, just seeing it through, you're going to create a bunch of work. And who knows, maybe you don't win the contest, but you've created 15 to 45 pages of new material for you to work with, for you to keep shaping, and maybe your book's going to come out 6 months later, who knows, or 2 years, but you're going to have done this work in 3 days. So that's the thing.
And that's really amazing. And I was telling Ronnie before we started recording, I said, this is a contest I would never enter. I just never would do it. So if you enter, you're a much more courageous writer and poet than I am. So, all right. Well, there you go. That's the word from Ronnie Ferguson from Harvard Square Press on PWPL's 3-day International Chapbook Contest taking place over this coming Labor Day weekend. Registrations are now open for the contest, but again, space is limited. The first 100 people who register are the ones that are going to compete. So go to pwpl.info and sign up for this really exciting opportunity. However, Ronnie, I can't let you leave the Nerd Poetry Foundation just yet. First, I need to find out what you have been reading that's good. Something that's been distracting you during the day, causing you to lose sleep at night. So, Ronnie, what book would you recommend listeners pick up off the shelf? So, what have you been reading that's good, Ronnie?
Okay, great question. Thank you for asking. I love to talk about books, and I will say this: I just recently got glasses. I've really struggled with reading for, I would say, almost 5 years, and I was wondering what's going on with that. I can't read for very long. And I finally got glasses. I said, oh, well, that's what it is. I can't even see the books. So I'm going to give you 3 recommendations.
All right,
one
awesome.
Poetry, one fiction, one nonfiction.
Okay.
So the poetry book I'm going to recommend is the first book I read after I got glasses, and I love this poetry book. It's actually by a writer right here in Marquette. It's Inland Sea by Lynn Domina.
So beautiful. It's just
I love this book, and in fact, I just bought another copy to give to some friends. They were asking, well, what's the UP about? I said, well, this might be a good place to start. There's a lot of beautiful writing about the UP in this book. So, Poetry, Inland Sea by Lynn Domina.
All right.
Fantastic writer, wonderful person. Second book, this is fiction. So this is by Jeff Kass, who has read here in Marquette, and some folks may be familiar. He had a Michigan notable book called Teacher Pizza Guy, which is a fantastic poetry book about being a teacher but not being able to make a living that way. So you had to become a pizza guy at the same time. So it wrestles with that theme. So that was Teacher Pizza Guy. So I picked up another book by him. This is a collection of short stories called Knuckleheads. And I love this book. It's so fun. I'm going to pass it on to my son, particularly because the first one is about wrestling. But what this book is about is it's about knuckleheads, and particularly men. And so it's a lot about guys figuring out what it means to be, a decent chap, figuring out the world. And so there's just some wonderful stories in this book. So that's Knuckleheads by Jeff Kass.
By Jeff Kass.
Short story writer. Collection. And nonfiction book. So this is the book I'm reading right now with a friend, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through. And I love this book. I was attracted to it from the title because I'm one of my favorite writers of all time is Raymond Carver. And this book is called What We Talk About When We Talk About God. And it's by Rob Bell. And he was a famous pastor of, I believe, like one of the fastest growing churches in the United States. And he's actually from Michigan. At least that's where his church was. Since then, he's just become kind of like a full-time writer and artist. But what I love about this book, it's a spiritual book, but it's a spiritual book for people who have been frustrated with they had a bad experience at church, or they've been frustrated with like finding faith, or just making sense of what does it all mean. So it's not like a book that sets out to like prove you should be a Christian or a Muslim or anything like that. It's not a book that sets out to prove the existence of God. It's a book that talks about just the miracle and the mystery that is at the heart of our world, our universe, and our lives. And what I find is it's really just reading this book, I feel like it's like carved a lot of space in me for just being willing to approach these thoughts and conversations without fear anymore. So I recommend this book, What We Talk About When We Talk About God, by Rob Bell.
Rob Bell. Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 great suggestions. I know Jeff Kass. I've read Teacher Pizza Guy.
Yes.
So I'm going to check out Knuckleheads, but Inland Sea by Lynn Domina. Beautiful.
Yeah.
If you are... if you love the UP, love Lake Superior, anything like that, beautiful, beautiful book. And then What We Talk About When We Talk About God by Rob Bell. So I think I've read a couple other books by Rob Bell. He's a really good writer.
Yeah, one of his famous. He's written several, but one of his more famous ones was called Love Wins.
I think that's
the
one.
And that one
I've
got him
read,
in some hot water because he was accused of being, a universalist or something like that. He identifies as a Christian, but one of the things he says, I'm open to truth. Wherever I find truth, that's God's truth,
Right.
And so he has this kind of openness that wherever you're at, whether your faith is, you've been a Catholic all your life and you got a really strong faith, or whether you're an atheist and that's your faith, you got a faith in atheism,
Right.
I think that you'll find a place in here that's safe,
Awesome. All right. Well, there you go. Those are Ronnie's recommendations of books that you should pick up off the shelf. And we have come to the end of this poetic episode of Library Nerds with Words. I want to thank my friend and fellow poetry nerd, Ronnie Ferguson from Harvard Square Press, for taking time out of his really busy schedule to stop by Nerdford on Avon today. I don't know if that one works. Come back next week when I will be joined by everyone's favorite nerd superstar, Lynette Succo, Assistant Head of Adult Services, for episode 30 of this season's Library Nerds with Words. Until that time, everyone, stay nerdy. Thank you for listening to Library Nerds with Words, Peter White Public Library's weekly podcast, giving you the word on what's cool at the library. The theme for the podcast is Happy Clappy by John Bartman, used courtesy of Pixabay. This episode was written and produced by Martin Ackitts and sponsored by Peter White Public Library. Until next week, pick up a good book, listen to some good music, watch a good movie, attend a great event, and remember, library nerds are the coolest people around.